Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a big pleasure for me to be here and today to give you some information on the new European regulation on drones. This is a big step for Europe because we are now the first area in the world that already developed and are putting in place a European regulation that is allowing several kinds of operations. So it's not only catering for leisure, but also for professional operation. And the big step is that with this regulation, operator in Europe will be allowed to fly in all member states without asking for any additional authorization. When you have the authorization from your member state, you can reuse everything that you did and do the same operation in another state in Europe. Before starting, I would like to tell you a couple of words on what is EASA. EASA is the European Union Aviation Safety Agency. It is located in Cologne and is an agency from the European Union that is managing all the aviation activities. This means that they propose regulations that then are approved by the European Commission, regulation on all fields of aviation. And also in EASA we verify projects, so design of aircraft, to make sure that all aircraft that are designed in Europe reach a minimum level of safety. Then in addition we do the verification that all member states apply the European aviation regulation in the same way, and we do some standardization activity. So the aim of the agency is to make sure that the level of safety in all Europe for aviation is always kept at maximum level. It's now there since 2004. And I think that they are achieving great results considering that the number of accidents now in Europe is very low. So now we are one of the safest area in the world related to aviation. So in my presentation, I will give you some information. First we'll talk about definition, introduction. Then in the morning will be dedicated to the open category. In the afternoon we will talk about the specific category, and then depending on the time I'll just give you very few information on what is the use case and the work on the certified category. My presentation is quite detailed, so I'm trying to cover all aspects. I expect that in the presentation I'm going to answer to most of your doubts. But if you have any urgent question, you can interrupt me. But anyway, at the end of each session, we will have a time for question and answers, where I can then answer to all your questions. Okay, so let's start with the definition. Normally, we are using the term drones. Drones is more a terminology used for public in order to be easily understood, but in the regulation we'll always talk about UAS, unmanned aircraft systems. So during the presentation I will maybe use still drones for simplicity, but in the regulation you always will see the UAS. UAS so include all kind of aircraft, those that are piloted, remotely piloted, or those that in the future will be autonomous. Everything so will be covered by the UAS. Model aircraft is, I think, is something that we are always used to fly in the last decades. Model aircraft fits the definition of unmanned aircraft, so they are UAS. So this means that the regulation applies also to them. You will see in my presentation that there are some special provisions because we recognize that the flight of model aircraft has been safe so far, so we don't want to change the way model aircraft are flying, and you will see in the next slides. An important actor is the US operator. So US operator can be a single person or an organization that is responsible for the full operation. So they may employ one or more remote pilot, and maybe the operator cannot be a remote pilot. The remote pilot is instead the person that is in charge of conducting the single flight. So in some cases, you can have the operator, a remote pilot is the same person. This will be for a small organization. Otherwise, there are two different persons with two different kind of responsibility. And also we will see in the presentation what are these responsibility. And lastly, involved person. This is a concept that we extensively use in our regulation. Involved persons means a person that has been instructed on the risk that may be posed when he is participating to a drone operation, and he knows about the emergency procedures that needs to take in place in case there is any problem. And very important, he has explicitly accepted to be part in the operation. For example, if I want to fly with a friend, I want to fly my drone with a friend, I may always be the remote pilot, and I may have my friend close to me that he can be then overflown, but my friend should be aware of what is the possible risk of the operation. So the important is that need to be explicitly accepted. Before going into detail in the regulation, let's see what are the legal basis. Why EASA did this activity? We have a regulation that is published by developed by the Parliament, is the 1139/2018, that we call EASA Basic Regulation, that identify what are the competence and responsibility between Europe and each member state. So far, the previous version of the regulation was setting a threshold of 150 kilograms for drones. So all drones below 150 grams was under responsibility of each member state. Also in relation to the verification of the airworthiness. When I mean airworthiness, I mean the verification that the design is safe for flight. While all drones above 150 kilo were under the responsibility of Europe, and so under by EASA. With this new regulation that was published last year, this threshold was removed. So now all drones are under competence of EASA. So this means that EASA is what we call the state of design for all drones. When the certification is needed, and you will see in the presentation when it's needed, the certification of the design of the drone needs to be given by EASA. The regulation says that this competence of the Europe is only for civil drones. So all state operation like police, firefighter, military are still under the responsibility of the member state. However, the member state may ask EASA to what we call opt-in. So they can ask EASA to be also in charge of state operation, but this needs to be expressly asked by each member state. So, what is the concept at the base of our regulation? You may already seen these slides. The first thing we did, we splitted the operation in three big pieces. We want to have a regulation that is, first of all, operation-centric and risk-based. So far in the manned aviation, we used to have a regulation that was providing threshold. If you're flying with an aircraft more than 1,000 kilo, these are the requirements. If it's more than 10 tons, these are the requirements. We thought that with drones this was not the case anymore, because it depends where you are flying. If you are flying with a 5 kilo drones over a stadium, this is a very high risk operation. We need to make sure that it's very safe. If you are flying with a drone with 100 kilos over the sea, in case you crash, maybe you can kill some fishes, but we don't need to be so strict. So maybe we can give you some alleviation and you can do the operation in a cheapest way. So this is why we want to understand where you do the operation and what is the risk connected to the operation. So 3 main categories has been developed, what we call open, specific and certified. So I will give the detail of these 3 categories, but just to give you some initial information, open means that you don't need to have an authorization by anyone. So these are operations that are conducted with very strict limitation, so to make the operation safe. And you just buy the aircraft, you see that, register yourself, and then you then fly. We don't distinguish between commercial and non-commercial operation. So the important is that if someone is flying over my head, I need to have always the same level of safety. So I don't care if he's doing for leisure or because he's maybe transporting a package to another place. So we always have the same requirements for both. So in the open category, as long as you follow the requirements for the open category, you are allowed to fly without asking any authorization, even if it is a commercial operation. If you want to do something a little bit more complicated, then you need to conduct the risk assessment, and then that is called specific category, and then you need to have an authorization by the NAA, or in some cases you can just issue a declaration, and you will see in the presentation. When instead the operation is at a higher level of risk, so this means that we are considering operations that are similar to what we have today with manned aviation, like transporting passengers or international flight with cargo, then the risk is very close to what is the risk today with manned aviation. So this class is called certified, and you need to have the full certification of the aircraft, certification of the operator, and also the license to the pilot, unless in the future we will have autonomous operation where the pilots will be always less involved, maybe we will not need anymore a license to it. So at this moment, the European Commission adopted 2 regulations that are defining the operation in the open and specific category. And today I will focus more on the open and specific category. For the certified category, today we are developing a proposal that we will first consult with all stakeholders, also with you, and we call NPA, Notice of Proposed Amendment. It's a proposal that will define how the certified category will work and what will be all the amendments to the current aviation regulation in order to allow the operation in the certified category. So the proposal will be published by the end of next year. You will have 3 months to comment on it. And then after receiving your comments, we will take into consideration, we'll make updates to the proposal, and we will send to the Commission for the adoption that will come sometime in 2021-2022. So what are these 2 regulations for the open and the specific? Are 2, because according to the agreement between the Parliament and the Member States, there are different processes of approval of the regulation based on the topics. So the first regulation is 2019-945, and is including all the technical requirements that are needed for a drone to fly safely, and the requirements for a third country operator when someone from, I don't know, China, Russia, wants to come in Europe and operate a drone. So in this regulation, you may see that there is all the process how to assess the compliance of the technical requirements of a drone, especially in the open category. When you will see in my presentation that we ask for a CE marking, and there is an appendix, or what we call a part, for each class of drone that can be used in the open category, defining the technical requirements for the drone. In the presentation, I'm not going very much in detail in this presentation because this is more for the manufacturer. So just for you to know that if you want to put on the market a drone to be used in the open category, you will see in the regulation you need to have a special CE marking, and this regulation will tell you, first of all, what is the process to have the CE marking, and also what are the technical requirements that you need to show compliance in order to have this CE marking. The regulation is already adopted, entered into force, and also became applicable on the 1st of July 2019. So potentially today, manufacturers may already put on the market drone compliant with this regulation. The second regulation, and this is what I will more focus today, is the 2019-947, including all the operational requirements and the requirements on registration of drones. This also entered into force the same date, the 1st July 2019, but the applicability has been delayed of 1 year because we need to give time to the NAA and to the operator to organize themselves to be compliant with the regulation. And now I will give you the detail of this regulation. We also published a couple of weeks ago on the EASA website the acceptable means of compliance and guidance material on this regulation. This is a normal process from EASA that after we publish the regulation, we give guidance to the operators in how they should interpret some piece of regulation, is the guidance material, or what are the procedures that they can put in place in order to be compliant with the different requirements in the regulation. So it means that if you follow the AMC, you can, your NAA, when they receive your application, maybe for flying in a specific category, they already know that the process that you followed was a process that has been validated by EASA with the support of the member state. These are not mandatory. If you think that you want to do something in a different way, you can still do in a different way, but you need to demonstrate to your competent authority that you are meeting then the requirements in the regulation. An important topic, these two regulations are European regulations, not directive. This means that they become directly applicable into national regulation. They don't need to be then transformed into national regulation. So the 945 is already applicable in Slovenia since 1st July 2019, and 947 will be since 1st July 2020, without need of any additional activity from the member state. And they will replace national regulations. The first important element is the registration. Now, I want that you have your attention to what is in the title, registration of US operator. We are not asking registration of drones, only of the operator. I can buy the first drone, register myself, and then I buy additional drone, and I don't need to do anything else. Registration will be in the member state where you have the residence, if you are a natural person, or where there is main place of business for organization. So for you will be here in Slovenia with your NAA, and will be based on a website. And we are working to develop a standardized way to have the same kind of approach in all countries. Which drones require registration of the US operator? So in the open category, whenever you buy a drone that has a weight more than 250 grams, you need to register yourself. Or even if the drone is lighter than 250 grams, if the drone has a sensor to able to capture personal data, this means a camera, a microphone, whatever that will impact the privacy of other person, and unless it is a toy, so toy means that it's compliant with the toy regulation, then you need to register yourself as well. So below 250 grams with a camera, unless it's a toy. And then there is a third requirement that is for the very high-speed drones that in case of impact, they can hurt people. So in the regulation, there is a threshold of 80 joules. Then you need to also register yourself. Just to give you some figure, for a 150-gram drone, we are talking about a drone that will fly at a speed of 130 kilometers per hour. So it's a very high speed. So we can say that actually the vast majority of drones will require the registration because most of drones will have a camera at least. In the specific category, if you are flying in the specific category, the registration is required every time, independent of what kind of drones you are using. There are cases where the drone's registration is required. So registration of drones is only required when the drone needs to be certified. So this means that EASA issued a certificate of airworthiness to the drone. You will see in my presentation when this is the case. So for the open category, we never require a type certificate to the drone, so you don't need to register a drone when it's in the open category. In the certified category, we always require a type certificate to the drone. In the specific, depends where you are flying, and then we will see this afternoon. An important element that was required, especially from the security authority, was to make sure that when I'm flying with my drone and I'm registered in my country and I fly in another country, my information needs to be retrieved by the police or the country where I'm flying. So we impose an interoperable and real-time registration database. So when you register yourself in your country, in your NAA database, this information will be there connected between the database of all states in Europe. So the police will be able in real time to access to this information when you are flying in another country. But how the police will be able to detect this number? We impose through the regulation 945 with technical requirements that all drones operating in the open category needs to have a local electronic identification system. So this will be a system that will broadcast information. What kind of information? The US operator registration number and also the drone's unique serial number. So all drones will have a unique serial number that is according to a standard that is in the regulation. The position of the remote pilot, or if it's not available, the position of the remote pilot, the takeoff position of the drone, the current position of the aircraft, the height and timestamp, direction and speed of the UAE. So this information will be transmitted using a technology for which there is a standard under development now. The standard may be using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth and should be able to be detected by a normal smartphone. So with my smartphone I will have an app, and the police will have the same app, where all of us, we can detect when we see a drone this information. If I'm a private citizen, I will not be able to understand who is behind the US operator registration number. I will just see the operator registration number. The police instead will be able to access the database and also identify the name of this person. So what I can do, if I see a drone that is spying close on my window, I can detect this information, have a snapshot, go to the police and show that this drone was flying that time in that place, and then the police will do the investigation. The registration number is also then requested to be added on the drone itself. You need to mark your drone with this number, so if you see a drone crashing in your garden, then you may identify who is the owner of the drone through the police as well. Before starting then really in the open category, last information on the zones. So we know that in Europe we have different countries with different characteristics, and most important, the EASA is only responsible for the safety. Safety means that everything is related to the aviation safety. We are not responsible for security. So we need to give flexibility to member states to identify area where they don't want to fly fly drones. They don't want to fly drone because of privacy, because of security, because maybe they want to protect the parliament building or other area, but also because we want to protect airports, so also for safety. or area where you need to have a special authorization in order to fly there. So they will publish this information on their website. Maybe we will have an app, like most of countries already developed. And the remote pilot is responsible to identify before flying if he can fly in that area, or if he needs an authorization, or if he needs to fly in that area some special equipments. So this is everything defined by the member state. The system, the drone, will also include some technical features like the geo-awareness. We require the operator to upload the data of the maps that he can download from the website of the member state. So we download the map with this information. They will upload this information on the drone. So when the drone is approaching one of these areas that are forbidden, the drone will give an alert to the remote pilot. At this moment, we only have the geo-awareness, so only will be an alert. Still, the remote pilot will have the responsibility to make sure that maybe he has the authorization, he can enter this area, or he need to go away. The second step in the future, we will have the geo-fencing, where the drone will be automatically stopped, so will not be able physically to enter this area, but this is something that will come in the future. So in addition to area where you cannot fly or to have a special authorization to fly, the member state may also identify area where the requirements that are defined in the open category are alleviated. And this is what is in the green zones in the slides, what we call our model zones, where maybe the member state can accept that you fly without any authorization up to 1,000 feet. At this moment today, you can fly not more than 400 feet, so 120 meters. Or maybe you can fly with drones up to 30 kilos. And then if you fly within this area, you can still fly legally. And there will be an information to manage aviation that for them this will be a dangerous area. And you will see that this will be a very important feature for allowing model aircraft flight.